if you speak to any product manager who is like analyzing the product you just mentioned versus other ones, wouldn't necessarily be a big part of the offering or the value proposition structure, anything. But it could be something that people aren't able to answer. Why do I actually like this? Why do I keep coming back to it? And I feel like this is often the case in seduction. Like, you don't necessarily know, and you can't necessarily always name why this feels better or I like it. Sometimes, yeah, it is rational, intellectual, but often not necessarily.
Yeah, and you have got to be careful with some of this stuff. So when I was doing my own consulting, I developed this thing called the kind of dimensions of awesomeness, and there were kind of 6 different dimensions, and the last dimension was seduction and delight, because the first dimension was just making sure that you're accessible and it's usable and the thing doesn't let you down. So, for example, one of the reasons why many of the perfumes are able to kind of develop a more emotional approach is because they smell good. If they smell terrible, then it doesn't matter how much you try and use emotion, it's not going to work. Okay, so this isn't an alternative to trying to make your product a good product. Okay, it's about taking it to the next level, really kind of extending beyond that. And I think what we see, or what I have seen in the past with a lot of product managers, so I think sometimes product managers end up as what I would call delivery thugs. And there's always a place for a delivery thug in your product development. Okay,
Yeah,
because the thing's got it. If you don't ship, it doesn't even work, right? So it's as simple as that.
Doesn't exist.
But I think that sometimes what happens is that you have all the best intentions and you end up by narrowing it down to becoming that kind of delivery thug, and you've lost track sometimes of where the extra gains can exist around that product, and more seductive gains, because you just need to get the damn thing out. So I think there's real reasons why sometimes the product managers don't think in that way. It's also potentially one of those reasons why people think about how you need to develop the usability first, and then you end up, like I said, with that spiral going round, and then you end up with seduction and delight. I would just slightly kind of caution on that, because I think that sometimes it can work the other way around. Quite often, people don't find it fun because it's easy. Sometimes people find it easy because it's fun. And occasionally, again, you've got to be really, really careful and nuanced about this, right? But sometimes if you have a flaw in your product, you can make it valuable. You can make it part of the thing. So, for example, I mean, Disney's is the most obvious example. If you ever go to any of the Disneyland parks, you've got a queue to get on all of the rides. But what they do is they provide entertainment around the queuing, so that sometimes it doesn't seem anywhere near as long that you're queuing. So there can be times when the kind of negative aspect can be embraced,